welcome you all again, and this is going to be a wonderful session. Um, this session is around communication and storytelling, and I know Neha since like not Lindy, but I feel like I know her from a long time. About Neha, she is head at Huhtamaki for Public Affairs. She has been into CSR professional, also the youth corporate coach for 15 years. She has worked with top MNCs and has been visiting faculty in BMM colleges and also has her own youth coaching company called Toddler Tattoo. And specifically, I love that because the things that are curated around it are wonderful. Corporate coaching company called Right Brain Tonic. She also has been ex-president of Rotaract Club of Kirti College and has been engaged in philanthropic and volunteering activities. Besides that, she's a good dancer and she loves to be around youth and to give them a mindful platform. So let's hear it from Neha. Thank you so much, Neha, for joining us.
Thank you, Dipali, and I'm really quite happy to be here today. In fact, interacting with people is something that I really enjoy right from my heart. And with this opportunity, I'm sure I'm actually being able to reach out to many people at the same time. So right now, what we are doing is actually communicating. We are connecting, and that's exactly this topic which I would want to bring out here so that we use the skill to our benefit in our lifetime. So just to go back to the very basics of what is communication, and I'm sure that all of us use this skill every day, right from the time we wake up till we go to bed. And we also communicate to ourselves. So many times you feel that you have this little voice inside you which keeps talking to you, keeps asking you questions, also keeps giving you warning signs at times. So all that what happens is a process of communication. I think as human beings, God has effectively given us the five senses, and each of those actually are interplaying when we communicate. So with that, I feel that this is one skill that everybody, irrespective of the age, background, or wherever you come from, this is one skill that each of us need to have. And it is one skill that we are blessed with, which we need to explore with its maximum potential. So that's exactly why today this workshop is going to touch upon some important aspects of communication and of course storytelling, which is now becoming more and more kind of a trend because of social media as well. So not to forget that social media has actually helped a lot of people to open up and express themselves. Of course, sometimes some people overdo it, but nevertheless, I think everything in moderation is essential. So what is exactly communication? Communication is very simple. It's the act of transferring information from one person to another. It could be even to the self, as I said that we have that voice in us. Now what you need to do is the whole art of listening is the most important aspect of communication. If you don't listen, you will not be able to respond or react. Generally, people feel that they listen, but sometimes they don't listen the full thing. So just a small example here is that you only have to watch a baby listening intently to its mother and trying to repeat the sounds that she makes. That's where the communication actually starts when you're a baby. You when babies are born, typically the older generation always says that keep talking to your child. Keep referring to sounds, keep referring to objects so that the child picks up the communication. And that's exactly as children what we did. We kept listening to people around us and we picked up our first few words, when we were growing up. But how does this information actually transfer? Okay, it transfers in many forms. First of all, the vocal, usage of your voice. I think when I speak to you effectively, clearly, you get engaged. If I am not clear, probably you will ask me a few questions, prompt me to be much more clear. Sometimes it also happens that you just hum a song and there are certain kind of reactions that people give. So vocal, using the voice matters. Now in the voice also there are different modulations. If I speak to you very softly, your reaction to it will be very different. If I speak to you very sternly, your reaction to that will be very different. So for example, when they say navras in drama, in theater, if you've seen Bollywood movies, when they actually do behind the scenes, rehearsals, the same word is expressed in 9 different emotions. And how does that happen? It happens because you modulate your voice, you modulate the thought or the expression behind it. So that is something which is very integral part of the vocal part of it. The second part of communication is writing. So anything that you read, nowadays everything is digital. People are sending WhatsApp messages like at every second. So that is written communication. Now, of course, it is not flowery all the time. We use emojis because we want to communicate that particular line or that particular statement with some emotion behind it. Also, written, when you read books, it gives you a very different visualization in your mind. When you read newspaper, it gives you a lot of information. When you go to Google, again, it's a lot of information. So using all these printed forms or digital forms of communication is actually written, the pool of writing. Okay. The next part is the visual. Visual is what you see. Okay. So it could be just as simple as when you see a logo on any object or any brand that you're using, immediately you connect with the brand. So for example, children who are not even able to read, if they see a big M, they know it's McDonald's. So that's how people associate logos, symbols, and many other small signs and objects to actually read in their mind, but it is actually visual communication. That's why when people from the advertising fraternity use a lot of creativity, that comes because even if you are, for some reason, you are somebody who's not educated or cannot read, at least by seeing a thing or an object, you're able to associate with it. So that's where your visual communication comes into play. So for example, Google Maps is a great example because all of us are actually using Google Maps, every now and then. And that's one way to actually get the direction right. If somebody has to tell you a direction verbally, how much of it will you really remember? So the moment you see the map, the road, in blue and red and yellow or whatever, then you realize, okay, you're in the right direction. There is no traffic, and a lot of visual information is passed on to you. The other important aspect of communication is non-verbal communication. Now here, what comes effectively is your body language. The way you sit, the way you present yourself, the way you express. If you're slouching your shoulders and you're just like sitting, without any expression, people try to feel that you're disinterested. But if you always have a smile on your face, your eyes look, as though they are actually inviting a lot of information, then okay, this is somebody who is speaking something interesting, and I can feel that somebody is taking interest in what I'm speaking. So body language, gestures is very important. I think in the olden times when Doordarshan was there, that time we had we had one part of the news which was specifically for disabled, as in those people who are blind or not blind, who are deaf or unable to speak. So they would use the sign language to communicate the news. So that was something back then which was a trend. So today there are many other ways and means where gestures, body language, a simple game like Damsharads is all about that, right? So that's exactly what you when I say non-verbal communication, I refer to that. So in practice, what happens is all of these are used in combination. Okay, so when you are presenting something, you tend to use your speech and your body language the most. When you are on your own, probably you use your ears the most. So for different situations, different kind of meetings, communications that you're going to do throughout the day, different gestures matter. So when do you say that it is an effective communication? The whole idea of effective communication is obviously very subjective, because communication happens between two people. So there has to be somebody expressing and somebody actually reacting to it. And if that expression and reaction happens along, in the flow and in the expected way, that's when you feel that, okay, this communication has been effective. And we often use also a term called it fell on deaf ears. What do you mean by it fell on deaf ears? Is when you have been saying something but somebody is not actually taking it, in that spirit. Probably there could have been a communication gap. So effective communication plays a very, very important role in your day-to-day life, specifically when we are talking about relationships. As I said, right from you're a baby, your mother and you are communicating. In fact, the baby communicates with the mother when the baby is in the womb. So that's how, the whole, essence of communication starts building up as you grow along. And then of course, when you go to school, then you complete your education, and then you come into the professional world, these things become a given, a mandatory point. If you look at any job, any job eligibility, many of those jobs will have effective communication skills or pleasant communicator and things like that as a basic eligibility. So therefore these things are, very, very important. So this is basic, the background of how communication actually is formulated. Now, with this, I would like to, open it up for a few questions if you have with respect to this first part, and then we can move on to the next important aspects of communication. So do we have any questions, comments? I'm ready to take them at this point.
You can either unmute yourselves and ask a question or post it in the chat box. Either is fine. Yeah, I think they all are good.
Okay, so we move on to the next part is the importance. Okay, now I've already spoken about the basic, what does communication actually entail? But now what is the importance of this? Now, importance is, first of all, to have really a life where, you have good relationships. I think we all always strive to have better relationships. We always expand our social reach. We always want to ensure that people, when they are with you, they have a good impression. They are happy with you being around, and that's because, it's the communication between the two people that plays an important role. On the other hand, as professionals, this is the second most important part, because as professionals, if you see from what we were as a country to what we are as a country now, there is a huge difference. That's because we started communicating globally. That's because we started getting a lot of, important investments into the country. The economic conditions improved. All this was possible only because one of the reasons was that, we started inviting that from the other parts of the world. But it's also because there was a communication, kind of constant communication happening across different countries. And that's where we are now. The world is in a global village. So that's for, nation building, for economic development, for social development. It's another very important, part. The third is, of course, professionals like you and me. I mean, we need this constantly, day in and day out, and it's the most important aspect. Today, everything happens on marketing, everything happens on promotions, a lot of presentations. After giving a lot of presentations, you crack deals. So that's where effective communication skills come into the picture. Then the form of art. A lot of us love music, dance, singing, and many other forms of art. What do you do actually with that art? You actually communicate expressions through that art. So this is, these are the aspects where good communication skills actually are, important. Apart from that, if you want to talk about social security, about you being healthy, I think communication also plays a very, very important role for you to maintain your health. If you don't, if you're not self-aware, if you don't talk openly about your health to the doctor or anybody else, you might be, you might have to keep it inside you, which is not going to help you in the long run. So what do you do to develop, you develop better communication skills? One of the things that you need to develop is to, first of all, start listening. That's from where it starts. Once you listen, is when you start grasping, is when you start picking up and learning from others. And then you use that as a context to build your response, your expression to that thing. So many a times we've seen that a lot of relationships, they get a little sour because there is some kind of a gap. Now, what is that gap exactly? The gap exactly is either it's a part of misinterpretation, miscommunication, or no communication at all. And that's where your relationships, whether it is professional, personal, business, they it becomes a significantly hard journey when these things are lacking. So it is very important that we have to put in a lot of effort to actually express yourself better. Now, the first kind of way of expressing is interpersonal communication. Okay, so interpersonal personal communication is when you are face to face or one or more people are interacting together, like a forum like this, maybe a smaller forum where there are 5-10 people and we are all speaking about a certain subject. It's interpersonal. The moment this group represents itself in a larger forum, it becomes a wider public communication. So it is important that we have certain principles which we need to follow when we are doing interpersonal communication. First of all is listening. Second of all is building a context. Now, what is the subject? Where has the subject emerged from? And what do you want to speak about this subject? That becomes important. The reaction of people with respect to that subject is the second aspect of it. And then once these two exchanges happen, the outcome, the result of that, that particular conversation is where the communication is completed. So there are three stages. One is, when somebody is listening, the other is somebody is reacting, and third is that, the outcome of that entire conversation is when we say that the interpersonal communication is complete, and then you can draw a conclusion whether this was a pleasant communication, it was a tough communication, whether it was easy and as expected, or was it only for information purpose. So that's where we talk about interpersonal communication. The second aspect when we say is verbal communication. So it is about all that we see. Okay, it is about, it can be written or it can be oral. Okay, it can be spoken. So the words we choose, they make a big difference, for us to understand. For example, communicating with a young child or someone who does not speak our own language well, when we go to foreign countries, it becomes very tough for us to explain our needs and wants because we don't know that language. So under those circumstances, what do? You need to use simple language, probably short sentences, so that those things are well understood. Not really using very high fi languages. For example, Shashi Tharoor, most people of course respect him for his vocabulary and his language, but not everyone understands what he says. So people who don't understand, they might feel that he is not so effective, while the class who understands him well may feel that he is very effective. So that is the difference. It's about how you actually look at the person you're going to communicate to, your target audience, and how do you actually put in your words. So usage of simple language, short sentences, and also checking whether that person is understanding what you're saying. So taking those regular pauses and trying to say, sir, did you understand what I need to say, or would you like to know something more, or do you have any questions? These are the ways where you can probe to understand whether the person knows what you're speaking about. It is very different from when you have a conversation with an old friend. Now, when you have a conversation with someone who's close to you, you may not need even certain cues because that person knows you so well. But in case of people whom you meet completely new, there are icebreakers. Okay, so what do you mean by icebreakers? You try to use a common platform or common probes so that two people who have met for the first time start that conversation. So these are the different techniques which you need to apply basis the situation, basis your target audience. Okay. The other aspect that comes handy here is reflection and clarification. These are both common techniques. So, for example, in verbal communication, to ensure that what you heard and understood, it understood the way it is intended. And reflection is where you start paraphrasing, interpreting, restating what the person has said. I think in school we all have comprehension, paraphrasing, summarizing. That's because these skills somehow naturally should come in an autopilot mode to you as you grow older, because the kind of conversations you will have with different people will always be different in every case. The other important factor is curiosity, questioning skills. These are the most important ones, and I think in the last 2 years, all of us attending webinars, meetings, everything online, questioning has become a bigger aspect, because it's very the medium of communication is actually also a barrier at times. I think the when we are physically there, the barriers are a lot more lesser than when we do things with technology in the back end. So questioning skills are other important area of verbal communication, often used when you need to clarify something or extract more information or to maintain the conversation. So if you want to keep people interested in the conversation, it's important to give out information in a way that people want to be engaged and ask for more. So questioning skills become important there. And then there are, very important aspect of verbal communication is also making speeches, public speaking. These are areas where, sometimes you might represent something as small as a very small group in your society, meeting. But there again, even if it's 2 minutes, you have to speak out, you have to say something. And there you have to use a language, appropriate sentences where the community does not feel it does not feel that you are what you're saying does not make sense to them. So these are important aspects of verbal communication. Now we move on to the non-verbal side. Till then, are there any questions that you'll have with respect to verbal communication?
Okay, may I come in here, Neha? There is a
Yes.
question by Sandeep, but
Yes.
maybe it is not so related to the community. Sandeep, you can come, you can switch on your video. So he is asking you that how can a social enterprise build brands like McDonald's that people could remember considering they have a small budget. Maybe Sandeep, can we readdress this question in terms of communication, that if people, the small budget business people get more communication knowledge, how it will help them to build their brand?
Right.
Can we take that question like this, Sandeep?
Sure, we can. I think there's. I just want to add, knowledge is one gap that we need
Hmm.
to fill, but the second is also skills, and I think medium. So I am just trying to understand for social enterprise brands. I'll give you a case in point for an NGO to collaborate with a bigger enterprise to get CSR from them. It really
Right.
has to brand itself in a very efficient way. So how does one do it so that they can stand out, because there are hundreds of NGOs vying for the same grant. So how
Right.
does one go about doing that?
Yeah, so I think there are three important aspects to it. One is the authenticity. I think
Hmm.
authenticity is something that most corporates would want to go in first. The ease of doing business and compliance and governance and all these things actually put MNCs in, or rather corporates into that constant warning mode. So authenticity is, second is keeping it simple. I think a lot of NGOs have started a trend of over marketing as well. So there are some,
Mhm.
they use maybe one or two, celebrities to kind of promote themselves that this person is working with us. So I think keeping it simple brings in a little more genuinity. And third, and the most important, is the impact. What kind of impact has your project actually created? And maybe you take those people for a visit to one of your, ongoing project to showcase that, okay, this is the kind of work that we actually do on ground, because seeing is believing. And I think it's very important to show. Writing a very creative proposal always will bring in interest, but not
Mhm.
necessarily the funds that you're looking for. But I think in the whole journey, both NGOs and corporates are learning. I think corporates are getting smarter on how do they select an NGO, while NGOs are getting smarter with marketing techniques. So it's basically, on both sides you can see evolution happening. And it is very important that authenticity, simplicity, and of course, impact. These three things are the major aspects where you can start building your brand. So even if you take, instances where there have been also NGOs who started in that way and then suddenly went very big with marketing because they got the funds and they evolved over a period of time. But then at that point again, the people start questioning their authenticity even after becoming brands. So it's very important that you maintain that kind of a positioning to ensure that you are in the same in what you're expecting as an NGO.
Thank you. That was very useful.
Okay. There it is anonymous attendee. He has not, he or she or they have not mentioned the name, but there is a question: how to come up thoughts quickly and interconnect them for good verbal communication?
Right. So I think, see, thoughts are very subjective. Every person has his or her own thoughts. But what you could do is the moment those thoughts are actually brewing in your mind, please make a note of it, or keep a diary, keep a pen, pencil, something, and just list them down. When you list them down, after when you're actually working on actually connecting that, that's when you need to see which are those important points from there, which are actually going to make the impact for you. So if there are 10 things that are coming to your mind, which are the three most important? The power of three always helps. Which are the three most important points that are going to help you get your message across effectively? And then use only those three to kind of communicate that, probably by using the right language, the right sentences, or maybe even visually showcasing that. So I would say that it's very important to gather your thoughts first of all, and then prioritize them, and then of course see what the impact is, what kind of impact you want your conversation or your thoughts to have. So that could be the way around.
Okay. So sometimes it also happens you have so many thoughts together and you're not able to put in. You said that you have to sit down and write those thoughts, but it might happen that you don't get that much of words, while writing. So for that, what do you think? What will be the best way to go for it?
Yeah. So first of all, when those thoughts come, what were the first two or three thoughts that came? Mostly, generally, it's human psychology that the first two, three things that come to your mind are the best things that come to your mind, and then the rest are just add-ons. So I think you should pick up on that nerve, the first three things, first two thoughts that have come, and probably try to put it across in one way. If you feel that that person is not reacting the way it is, probably then you can aid it with some more things, that what if I can try this, what if I can try something else. So I think it's very important to put forward the first few things that come to your mind, and add-ons can always be welcome if the conversations are going in the right direction. So using simple words, always it's not important to use high vocabulary. High vocabulary is used where specifically they've asked for high vocabulary. Specifically, if you're talking to a circle who understands that vocabulary, or you are in a maybe in a forum where you're expected to speak, with certain in a certain manner, but not in a day-to-day conversation. I think people get put off if you use too many complicated words. So simplicity is the key to communication. I think keeping it simple, crisp, and short is very important.
Okay. Anyone, any question other than this? Okay.
Okay, so we move on to the next part, which is non-verbal communication, and I like this because this always has many aspects to it. So using our voice is only the tip of the iceberg. Okay, we generally feel that baat kar liya to kaam ho gaya. That's not the case. There are many other things that go around. The way you are expressing with your eyes, with your hands, with the way you're sitting, with the way you are presenting yourself. I think those give that added cues. If you find somebody speaking really well but is all the time distracted, that it doesn't, the other person doesn't get engaged in it. So we actually communicate far more using non-verbal communication than actually using verbal communication. So it's a way to reinforce what you're saying. So the moment I use my hands, your attention is there. If I just sit with a plain face, with a slouching shoulder like this, and I keep on going and going, you will not have that interest in my conversation or what I'm saying. So body language, eye contact, hand gestures, even your things like the color you wear, the dress that you're wearing, your upkeep, your external upkeep of yourself, all of these matter. So that's why when you see in schools or any professions like chef, hospital, police, why do we have uniforms? We have uniforms because uniforms bring in that sense of seriousness to the profession, seriousness to the whole segment that you are a part of. Even corporates have formal wear because that's when the seriousness comes in. So these are the cues of non-verbal communication. Similarly, colors play a very important role. When you see that somebody is wearing a bright orange shirt in office is not acceptable because it's very distracting. It is not something where people will take you seriously. But at the same time, you wear that on a holiday with a group of friends, maybe they will appreciate you, saying that, oh, you've worn something very unique. Because the mindset, the expectation that in this kind of a setup, you're supposed to be in this kind of a attire. So that's where the communication actually starts, even before you speak a few words. Therefore, non-verbal communication is extremely important. It is important for the smallest thing when you're doing at home to obviously when you are in a professional kind of a setup. The other part, as I was saying in the beginning, listening is also a vital interpersonal communication skill. So listening again is something where you are not actually doing anything but just plain listening. You might listen to the whole lecture but grasp only 4 points. You might grasp all points also. So it's again very subjective. It's a two-way process. So if I listen to you, definitely you will listen to me. And it's very rarely that certain people, they don't react if you're speaking to them for hours and hours. Okay. So it's a two-way process, and it is a very, very essential part because if you've heard, we played this game called Chinese whispers, as kids, and we've seen that at the end of the chain, what is the actual outcome of the first message that went around. So each time when the information is passed on, there is certain amount of filtration that happens, and that filtration happens at the convenience of the person sending that information. So if somebody has told me that the day is great and I'm enjoying, and I will pass it on, the day is great. By the time it reaches the person, it might be like, somebody is enjoying. It can even get toned down to that, the day is not so great even. That's because every person is interpreting it differently, passing it on with a lot of filtration. So our listening actually is very subjective. We like to listen exactly what we want to listen, and many a times we filter out things which are not acceptable to us, or we don't want to get into that zone. When we say that I don't want to get there, is when we actually are putting that one kind of a curtain or a barrier, saying that, was this person is not interested in listening anything about this particular topic. Okay, so those are the cues to understand when you know that the person is not going to listen to you. So this is another very important aspect of non-verbal communication. Also, listening is there in both non-verbal as well as verbal. Now using these skills, you may use them very effectively in a professional setup, but it's very important that you keep these in mind when you're using them in your day-to-day life. I think we all take webinars and a lot of learning, and we try to apply them only in our professional world more, thinking that, okay, if I use this in my professional world, I'll be more successful. But that's not always the case. Certain skills you need to really master it for your personal life as well. And communication skills is one such aspect of your life. Now, I would like to just, go to the other part, which is more formal communication, where we talk about presentation skills. I think all of us have been using presentations, day in, day out, and more so now because, we all need to have meetings online and share our screens and showcase everything. So it's very important that presentations are also made very effective. I think to win businesses, to crack deals, to make your point more valid, to put in strategies into action, these skills are going to be the most important ones. And we've been seeing that over the years. Initially, people used to typically read the slides. You know, that's not effective presentation skills. You might have the most good looking slides, but and with a lot of sentences out there, and you may plainly read it, it is not a good presentation. So what do you actually do? How does presentation skills actually help? The aspect to presentation skills is basically, first of all, know how much time you have. So if you have, say, for example, a 30 minutes presentation slot given to you, which means that you are going to spend at least 2 minutes per slide. At least 2 minutes per slide. So that means you should have not more than 15 slides as a part of your presentation. Because generally people lose track. They spend a lot of time on the first 4 slides, and then the actual point that you want to make maybe on your 5th or 6th slide, where you literally don't give any time to explain that part. So I think moderating that time limit is very important. Always have it in such a way that you close the presentation in 25 minutes and not go up maximum to 30 minutes. Secondly, never read the slides. Have some, just have important bullet points, have some visuals, mostly try to use visuals, and then use the rest of it to speak out, to explain it in your way. I think what people do is they write what exactly they're going to explain also on the slides, which definitely is not a effective way of communicating. So these are some tips which you can actually use to build up your presentations. One is, half of the time. Second is, priority slides, need to be given more time, and non-priority they should be upfront. Always have the agenda to the presentation right in the beginning. So what all you are going to actually cover, and then never read out the presentation. Make your script separately for every slide, and speak it out. Don't have to put each and everything out there. Otherwise there is no point. You might as well send a written proposal than present it there. So these are a few points which you can use for effective presentation skills. Similarly, writing skills. Now writing skills, again, a lot of people say that yaar wo likhna vikna I don't know. Yes, Dipali.
Yeah, there is a question. I'm sorry, I'm breaking it in between.
No problem.
Yeah. So, but this is not related to non-verbal. It is related to our both the things, verbal and non-verbal. The question is,
Right.
are there any communities where we can sharpen our verbal and non-verbal communication skills?
Are there any?
So who has asked this question? If you can switch on your camera and want to ask this question upfrontly. Okay. Just give us a moment. There is some. Okay. So are there any communities where we can sharpen our verbal and non-verbal communication skill? Whoever is asking this question, there is no name who has asked this question.
Okay.
So what? So I don't know what
Yeah,
communities.
I mean, communities, I'm not too sure, but of course there are a lot of courses and a lot of other forums where these kind of topics are taken up in more details. In fact, I also do such programs as a part of my toddler work, but yes, I mean, you can look up for those.
Yeah.
So shall we? Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to, Neha, you yourself want to ask if them questions or something like that.
Yes. So I would be doing one interesting exercise after I cover the writing skills piece, and just before we move on to the storytelling bit.
Okay.
So I will be doing that in a short while. Yes. So moving to communication skills, so writing skills. So writing skills, the ability to write clearly and effectively is very important. So we have very interesting. If you've seen this movie Three Idiots, I think all of us have seen it, and there has been one instance where somebody one of the actors was just reading the speech as is, with that one particular word being changed, and what kind of a blunder it created for him. It was a lot of embarrassment, right? So such things, actually play an important role in writing. If you just write without, you write something and you read without applying your mind, or the other way around, where you read something and you land up writing something else. I think both these things can lead to communication gap, and it could also lead to a lot of confusion. So it is very important that your thoughts first of all need to be clear in your mind before you even start writing it. Once your thoughts are clear in your mind, you start assimilating your thoughts. So have a context, then talk about the details, and then you end it with an outcome or an action which you want to actually take for the future, or the message that you want to leave behind for the people for whom you're writing. So I think these three parts, so as we say, the headline should communicate the most important thing, that what this topic is about. The first paragraph should be a good introduction or a context setting. The middle part should be the more details about the whole thing, the topic that is of concern. And the end should be generally an outcome, an action, or a moral that you of the message that you would like to leave behind. So this is the most simplest form or flow which you can actually apply to your day-to-day writing. And I think this is something which you learn also in school, which still holds relevant even in your professional life. But if you are somebody who is into media and communication, somebody who's into coaching or something, where a lot of public interaction is involved, so it's very important that you cover the 5 W's and 1 H, because that doesn't leave you with any questions that you can't answer. So your 5 W's is typically your, what, when, who, why, how, and where. And H is of course your how part. So I think if you answer these questions in your thoughts, you will be able to put that thing together, as a piece of good communication. So that's about the writing skills. And then, as I said, that I wanted to do an exercise, with you all. And with that, I would like to actually introduce you to the storytelling part of it. So the exercise, here it goes. I want all of you to close your eyes. Okay, and I'm going to be saying a few words, a few things here, which I would want you to imagine. Okay, so please close your eyes. Okay, so imagine yourself in a deep forest, a place where it's only you and the nature. There are birds, different kind of birds, chirping in melodious sounds. A lot of greenery, different shades of green. You can smell the freshness of the mud. There's a beautiful stream of water. You can hear the water flow. As you walk, you can feel the softness of the leaves, and you can also hear the sounds of some dry leaves below your foot. You then park yourself on a rock just next to the river. And then you think about how your childhood was. You remember your friends, your school, some happy memories of your school, some mischief that you played, for which you were scared then, and now you laugh it off with your friends. Your exams and your mindset during your exams. Your excitement for your birthday and your celebrations. Your first vacation with your parents and your siblings. And your college life, where you had probably the best time. Your pocket money, from which you bought some snacks, watched movies. The day you graduated, and then got into your professional life. Your first interview, your first work stints. And then life got stressful, and you decided to come back to this place. And after spending 4 days in this place, you don't want to go back. Now imagine yourself trekking up a mountain, reaching a place where you have to board your car, drive down a long unwinding road, reach a crowded city where you can hear only the horns honking, and finally you are back to your house. Now open your eyes. How was your experience? I would like one or two of you to kind of express how was this experience?
Yeah, Soundarya, if you want to speak, you can speak. Prajwal. Yes, Nina. Nina, you can please unmute yourself.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
I'm Sondara Kalidas from Bangalore.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really fantastic, ma'am. It so gives us so much of peaceful and it get back our memories. It's really fantabulous. I can't express also that much energetic and refreshful.
Right.
Really awesome, ma'am.
Yes. I'm sure that you must have gone into some sort of nostalgia, and you also felt
Yes,
refreshed.
I gone to my like a daydreaming. I went for daydreaming.
You went into daydreaming. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It's really fantastic, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. So can we have Nina also to kind of speak?
Thank you.
Nina needs to be unmuted. I think she's asking for that.
Go ahead, Nina.
Yes, Nina, you can speak now. I think you have been unmuted. Okay, Shalaka, if Nina has a problem, then probably Shalaka can speak. Yes, can we have one more experience sharing? Okay,
Yeah, now can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah, because I was trying to unmute myself. Okay.
Yeah.
I thank you, Neha, for the very vivid experience that we had with your the storytelling that you did for us, and you could take us back into that time and into that very vivid experience of sitting on the rock in the jungle with feeding the leaves, hearing the birds, and could imagine the stream, and then going back into the journey into childhood, and then along that the historical path and coming to the present day. It was in a snapshot, in a flash. You have taken us through the entire journey, and it is very revealing because in that very few moments you have made us go through the entire thing, which we would have not experienced for many days or months together, which we have not thought about. And those flashes were so vivid, including the memories of the childhood. So I don't know how that happens, but then just by your prompting, it was very a kind of beautiful experience. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Meena.
we would
And
like to understand how it happens. I mean, just one second.
yes,
If I had thought of the same things, okay, I'm going back into my the pranks that I played or anything else, probably it would have not been so vivid as when you as a speaker were telling us. So
right.
why does that happen?
Yes,
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely. So this exercise were, I mean, I'm very glad that, all of you were able to actually go into that, that thought and that imagination. And the whole reason, the whole aim to do this exercise was to actually get you to live, what I was trying to say, or rather kind of, as you said, that how does this happen that in a flash I could, go back to my memories. So this is actually storytelling. Okay, here I was prompting you because it was like a story for you, and as I was prompting you, your imagination, your memories, they started recollecting in one place, and that's what you started feeling in this 1.5 minute of my my commentary. So storytelling always involves one listener and an interaction with the person who, so you are the listener and I'm the storyteller. Here I don't know what you've done in your life. Okay, I don't know you as a person, but you were able to connect with me just because I was using certain prompts to make you imagine. And that's exactly what storytellers do. They try to bring in a fourth dimension to your life. They try to bring in that part of your life where your imagination plays an important role. The rest of it is facts. It could be associations, it could be memories, but what is important is imagination. I think we all have imaginative minds. It's only that we don't apply it. As somebody said, we don't do this every year. We've been doing this. We did this this exercise after many years. When people meet after a long time, reunions, for example. So when there are reunions, what happens? Each of us, we say, चलो किससे अपने किससे याद करते हैं. Kisse yaad karna is actually your own story that you're trying to recollect and bringing it back. Now, each one has a different way of narrating that story. Somebody might, say it in a very animated way. Somebody might, just kind of narrate it the normal conversational way. Or somebody might, really keep it to himself and just, smile, laugh, and give reactions to it. So there are different, there's always a two-way interaction between the storyteller and the listener. Okay, the responses of the listeners. So whatever that I asked you for a response after doing this exercise is because your response then gives me, like gives me the chance to actually coordinate my efforts and your, what output I have given to you. Okay, so now I know that, okay, this has been effective for you. So obviously I will take this to the next level and make it more interesting for you to imagine. So storytelling works on basically imagination, expression, and emotion. These three things are like the crux of storytelling. So you have to be relatable. If I start telling you, okay, I'll talk about robotics, or if I start talking to all of you about a concept which none of us have ever seen, it will be very hard for you to imagine. But this was something which all of you could easily do it, because it was about yourself. It was about, prompting you to your own memories, to your own life, and something which commonly all of us have gone through these important phases of our life. All of us have, have had experienced childhood, we've experienced school, we've experienced, college, and we've experienced the life at present. And that's why I was relatable to you, because all of us had that as a common ground. And emotion, because I took you to the happy part, to the mischief part, to the stressful part that we have at the moment, and also to your own spiritual connection, because you were in a nature place where you could feel yourself to be in peace. So I think I took you to 3 4 different emotions at one go. So it was also an emotional journey for me. And therefore, these 3 things actually helped me, or helped you yourself, to build a story or to build your imagination around. So this is very important when it comes to storytelling. Also, what happens is, different cultures and situations, they create different experiences and different expectations. Okay, so for example, when we watch dubbed movies, the same movie grossing 300 crore plus may not have the same kind of impact probably in another state or city, because somewhere the expressions, emotions, the language, that doesn't match, and it's a big put off. And then you can decide that, okay, this movie is not good for me. However, in that a particular state, that movie has done exceedingly well, because they are able to connect, they are able to relate. There are some common grounds of culture or something which helps people to actually grab the right messaging from that particular movie. The movie is all about storytelling. I think all of us are storytellers. It's just that, what we lack sometimes is creating that hook, creating that interest. And that happens only when you start making things more relatable, when you give examples, when you give interesting analogies. That's where storytelling becomes more effective and more interactive. Okay, now if you see with kids, I mean, kids when they grow up, why do they like to listen to stories? Because they, maybe a 2 year 3 year old, they've hardly seen life. They've just seen their parents and they've seen a few relatives probably. They've not seen anything beyond a point. Now those experiences you're trying to give them through the stories, that there is a fairy, there is somebody, some imaginary character, and you're trying to build that child's, imagination around that. Whereas in case of adults, when we read a lot of books, specifically some fictitious books or some kind of novels, we start visualizing the character, we start visualizing. So the use of words, the use of emotions in the writing actually helps you to visualize. It helps you to connect, it helps you to express that, okay, when they, if some of you have read Secret Seven or Famous Five or Nancy Drew or any of those, school time Mills and Boons, I mean, you can actually, when the way they would describe the character, right from how the character looks to the character's, traits, each of that would flash in front of our eyes. Right now, also the same technique was used, just that here it was my voice. There is your own voice, because when you're reading, you're actually talking to yourself. So these things are very important when it comes to storytelling. Any questions so far? Okay, so I move. Yes, Dipali.
No, that's what there are no questions yet. Oh, this platform is please feel free to ask. There is nothing like you can raise your hand, you can put your questions, you can comment everything. Please feel free to do that. Thank you, Neha. You can continue.
Yes, yeah. So what does storytelling actually involve? Okay, storytelling is nothing but a presentation of a story, a narrative. Okay, many other art forms also present a story. Okay, but it's also with certain components as a part of it. Now, what is recognized as a story in one situation may not be accepted as one in another. Okay, so some situations call for spontaneity, playful digression. For example, others call for near exact repetition of a revert text. So, for example, in some stories you will see that a certain part of the story keeps repeating many a times. That is because there is a lot of reinforcement of that particular thing in that story. Whereas in certain cases it's the subject just goes flowing in a way that you feel, okay, what's next. So your thriller movies, your suspense movies, movies where you which are very speedy, like there are situations happening one after the other. So those are progressive stories. Those are stories where your imagination needs a catch up with the flow. Whereas there are some which are more in your like more very dreamy and imaginative, so we call them like like a fiction. For example, like we've never seen those anacondas or dinosaurs of Jurassic Park ever in our lives, but the way they've been expressed, they've been put up, larger than life, devastation, destruction, all of those emotions have been, you feel it sitting in the theater just because it's been told to you in a certain way, it's been shown to you in a certain way, it's been expressed to you in that form. So when we say that somebody acted well in a movie or somebody did not act so well, what do we mean by that? I just want to hear a few answers. Like when you say that, oh, this actor did a good job, he really acted well, what do you mean by that? Why do you feel he's acted well? You can take any example, any of the recent examples. So I would want one or two people to answer that. Yeah, I mean it's your opinion, so there is there is no, don't feel conscious about, oh, if I like somebody, somebody else may not like him or her. It's perfectly okay. You can take any example of your choice, but please let's make this interactive, because we are in a communications workshop and I don't want to have a one-way communication. So please express here, like if you are watching a movie and you have liked somebody's acting, what is it like, why do you like that person's acting?
You're able to relate to it.
You're able to relate to it. Yes, Adnan has also raised.
Yeah, so when you like the actor, because you feel like it's a real person, the character comes out, though the particular person is acting that, but the character comes out, you feel as you relate to that particular character very
Correct.
closely.
Correct, absolutely. So one is that that either you relate to the character and you may relate to the situation in which he or she is reacting on the screen for. So for example, when there is a scene where there is a death of the most, or like the most main person in the movie, or say the hero dies in the movie, irrespective whether he was a villain or a gray character or he was a good character, uh, there are certain people who still cry, okay, after watching that the hero is dying. Like for example, I'll give you Bazigar. Shah Rukh Khan dies at the end of the movie, but still people cried during that time. They cried probably because either they like Shah Rukh Khan so much that that they are relating him कि ये real world में ऐसा वो he's no more, or they've liked his character, that there certain parts about his character is something which has touched you in your life. So for example, revenge as an emotion, somewhere you are revengeful about something and it has touched that chord of your heart, and that's what has made you cry or realize something. So for example, on the other hand, a movie like Three Idiots, where people actually started taking serious career choices based on passion. It was revolutionary to see that. It's shown at management colleges, that movie. It's because you have gone through that situation You see the character also going through that situation in the movie. He has emoted in a certain way, which has actually has made it relatable for you, because probably your emotion at that point also was similar or could have been according to that to solve your problem as well. So emotion, expression, and relatability, these are the important aspects of storytelling. So when you see Humans of Bombay on Facebook, there a lot of people like that page. That's because they tell you stories about everyday people. Like they talk about pet stories, they talk about how couples actually had different experiences, how somebody helped someone and that person really progressed in life. These are day-to-day stories, somebody about some living people living in your neighborhood. They are no actors, actresses, sports people, or any other glamorous celebrities, but they are common people. But their stories also are liked so much because somewhere something has related to you. It has caught your right chord of emotion. Sometimes what happens is certain movies are extremely good. They've done well at the box office. People have appreciated it. Majority people have appreciated it. Still, there will be few people who have disliked it because maybe certain aspect of those movies never related to that person at all. So, for example, like for me, a person like me, something too fictitious I cannot relate to because I don't feel emotionally charged when it comes to certain things, like certain sci-fi type of things. It doesn't connect well with me. It might be the best series of movies where everybody goes gaga, but not me because I can't connect with it. I feel I don't feel that emotion for it. So same things happen. We all go through this emotional journey with words, with music, with sentences. So for example, when you're listening to music, you know, there are certain songs you will play 10 times also you will never get bored. And they are your mood chargers. So every time you feel low, you feel stressed, you want to listen to that music over and over again. You know everything. You know the words by heart, you know the singer, you've seen that video maybe 50 times in your life, but still you will keep it will still turn your mood into something, into a happy mood. And there are some songs who put you into thoughtful mode where you might even cry because it somewhere brings out that emotion in your heart, probably some bad memory or some memory of a missing person. So storytelling is about actually connecting the dots. It's about connecting the situation to the character in your story, to the expressions and emotions that that character brings in, and then the relatability factor. So when people are in a group and they're talking about a certain subject, so sometimes some people are so involved that they all are like having a healthy discussion, and there will be always one or two people completely switched off looking into their phones. Why? It's not that they don't like their friends or they're not, it's not that they're not happy to be there. Of course they're all there together, they are good friends, but two people have nothing to do with that subject or finds that subject boring and will not participate or does not have enough knowledge to contribute with respect to that. So it's very important that if you want to become an effective storyteller, whether it is a business situation or even in your professional world, it's important that you create a hook. Now that hook could be that, okay, which is the target audience I'm talking to and what kind of things they would like to listen, and how can I bring in those elements or those examples into my discussion so that I remain relevant and relatable to that crowd, to that target audience. Again, the key is not to have very fancy languages, but you can have as many descriptive words. Using descriptive words always fuels imagination. So for example, if I've been telling you soft, I'm saying green. When I'm saying cool, I'm saying hot. So it gives you that sensation, it gives you that emotion. The moment I just say that there was a tree, imagine yourself, there was a tree, there was some water there, you were sitting on the on a rock. How will you even want to imagine that? You're like, yeah, theek hai yaar. I mean, she's saying something. But the moment I make it very, like for example, when we talk about food, why, if you see any of these masala ads or any, ads with related to food, they add in a lot of this, these descriptive words in that, because they want that food to really touch your taste buds. So for example, I'm sure many of you remember Sapola ad, of the Sundrop or some this oil ad in the 90s, where there used to be a big puri. This small child is, taking a is jumping around, and jalebi and all those. So these things actually, really somewhere they touch your memory of that food experience that you had, and it's so descriptive that you would want to have that experience on the other hand. So descriptive words in storytelling play another very important role. Also creating the mood, the ambience, for the story. So when you talk about, a situation where there, if you're talking about any situation and you talk about the physical environment of that place, and it was a dark night, nobody on the streets, so that starts building. It starts taking you into a journey. It takes you into that ambience. And then you can just imagine that with that kind of a setting, what can happen to the situation. So this is another very important part of storytelling, that is active imagination. I want to activate your imagination. So if I want to activate your imagination, I have to make it dramatic, I have to make it descriptive, and I have to make it relatable again. And then once your mind is put into that zone, that's when emotions will flow, that's when expressions will happen, that's when likability will increase, interest will get generated. So the whole principle of AIDA, AIDA is that AIDA. It's basically, I want to attract your imagination, and then I want to be so descriptive that you really are activated. So this is what AIDA means here in this case. So that is the principle of storytelling. And in of course, again, I would want to repeat that, all of us are very conscious as people, as human beings. Now, what if I don't use the right sentence? What मुझे इतना अच्छा लिखना नहीं आता है? Who decides that? Who decides that? As far as your expressions are well communicated in the sense that the communication loop needs to be closed. Okay, and the tonality of voice, the tonality of the way you are, presenting yourself, I think it's a mix of all of these things put together. Only a fancy language, only difficult or high vocabulary words are not going to make you an effective communicator. What is going to make you effective is going to be relatability, relevance, emotions, expressions. These are going to really win hearts for you and make your conversations or your stories really engaging. So with this, I would like to take some more questions from you or comments.
Has Sandeep asked his question? Is
Yes, so
Sandeep there?
I can see a question here, that which are your favorite social campaigns which have used storytelling. So I would say there are a couple of them. One of them which, still is the Complete Man Raymond. The Raymond ads were so beautiful. They actually showed your life cycle, from going from, a young adult to becoming a gentleman. I think they've used that, those occasions of marriage, of graduation, those are something where you could relate very easily, that how a human being undergoes so many different experiences, and there is a brand which will endorse all of those of your life journey. So Raymond has been one of the campaigns. Of course, Cadbury's, one can never forget the dairy milk ad of the 90s, and now they made the same ad, the other way around, where the man is dancing for the woman cricketer in the stadium. So I think joy, and how our actually family members have pride for something. When you get your first medal home, your mother is like thinks you're God from somewhere. So I think again those expressions, emotions really relate, and you still, I mean that ad is it's not that I don't eat dairy milk, or I'm going to stop eating, but that ad will still, I will still keep watching that ad, not for getting any information or branding, but just because that emotion lies with me, it's relatable to me. Yes, so there is again a similar question. You can also share your yes. So as I've always, I mean, I just now answered about Cadbury's, Raymond, Titan also was one ad in the past, which really was a great one. Yes, Amul ads definitely. So Amul ads actually hit your chord of humor. Yeah. So Amul butter, all of us have been eating for ages now, and I mean, I don't know how many generations have been eating that, and every time you would want to see that hoarding on the road just to see an Amul ad there, which really strikes the humor chord in your heart. So I think they are brilliant ads, and there is a lot of thought. Advertising is a very creative journey, but at the same time a tough one, because we have so many target audiences to touch their emotions and make the product sell in the market. So that's absolutely something where storytelling is used with a lot of structure, planning, creativity, and of course the right usage of people and platforms and channels to ensure that the messages and the promotions of the products are done. But there are a lot of social ads as well, which people are like constantly touched with. Obviously, now you'll see the difference. Now if there's a social ad, there have been a lot of online social ads, but if you see the ones in the theater after the movie ends or in the interval, those are the ads that just leaves you in a scare, because they show such kind of visuals to you, specifically when it comes to smoking and those kind of ads. They are, I mean, you feel disturbed on seeing them. Whereas the same thing, if it is communicated in a very different way, probably it might just hit the message harder, without being too scared, but by bringing in that feeling of change that you would want to bring. So it's very important that you put the message not very hard hitting. At times it works, at times it absolutely does not work. It has a reverse effect. So, and it may also have a very destructive effect too on people. So it's very important to be very choicist about these things, when it comes to expression or visualization of any kind. So how to bring humor in your conversation to interest the audience? So that depends from person to person, and it also depends as to which audience you're connecting to. So if you're connecting to somebody who's a younger audience, probably you might have to use relevant examples to bring in that humor. Like I've been seeing some smiles in between when I was talking about some older ads, because that smiling effect was because you were able to connect to those examples. If you start giving examples of your time, which is to an audience which is just 7-8 years old, obviously they will not find that interesting. Or but if you bring in those all those kind of analogies, those kind of examples from the relevance point of view, probably that could generate a humorous conversation. Also animating your expression, really creating that descriptive thing of what actually happened, bringing in humor while you're talking also can generate humor. Okay, so it's important that these are the things that you can use while bring to bring in that little bit of humor and cheer into your conversation. Even speaking energetically about a particular incident can bring in humor of some sort. But yes, as somebody is here commenting that you have to be careful with humor. Yes, because not all people like every kind of humor. So there is dark humor. There's something called dark humor where sarcasm levels are very high. So when you go to a stand-up comedian, stand-up comedy, show, very clearly outside you will see certain rules written there, where they very clearly said that there will be some kind of humor that might hit your religious or your cultural sensitivities. But if you're brave enough to take it, please watch the show. Otherwise, this is not for the light-hearted people, as they say. So light-hearted means sensitive people, as they say. So yes, humor has to be very carefully managed. A lot of brands have also had, their had to burn their pockets by paying fines, for doing things out of line because it didn't connect with certain sections of the society. So we have to be. Everything depends on the target audience, because when you're communicating, it's not you alone. You are communicating to someone, so you have to moderate your words, your language, your way of appearance, and a lot of other important aspects which fall in that frame in order to get it effectively passed on to the next. How can one practice humor for day-to-day conversation? Yeah, probably, as I said, your maybe you animate yourself. If you have a way of talking, my probably you can animate your expressions. You can, actions, certain gestures. These are the things that can help you for your day-to-day, bringing your day-to-day humor. But it's very natural. It's a natural process, right? If many a times you are in a certain mood where you are not up for any humor, you're serious about some work, or you're serious about, the day, and you cannot consciously practice humor as such. It has to come naturally, and it will reach that opposite person only when it's done in the natural form. So that's what I would say it is. Also read up jokes. Okay, somebody is helping me to answer that, so thank you. Yes, so I think it's all about the mindset. If you are, as they say, positive energy is infectious, so is negative energy. So if you're positive, if you're very happily, in a bubbly manner, communicating something, adding that smile, that laughter, probably that might be taken in a humorous way by the opposite person. But if you're not in that mindset and just doing it for the, just like a checklist, just a tick in the box, it will never be as natural as you would expect it to be. So be your judge, be your own judge, and see what those situations are, and see where, how you can effectively do that, and with whom you're doing it is also very important. Because a lot of times you are in a certain mood, people at home may not be in the same mood. They would have some other things happening in their mind, and you feel that you're cracking a joke, may not be taken in that way by that person, and that will actually put you in stress, because you will be like, "Arey, maine itna acha, I was like, relating something so nice, and this person is angry, or this person is not paying attention." So you have to, everything has to be done, subject to the situation, the person, and your own moods, and what you want to really talk about. So any other questions, comments, any experience sharing that one wants to do? We still have some time, and we want this to be interactive as well. So please feel free to do that.
So, just a very frank and a basic, since you said we can come up with anything silly also.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, of course we can hear
So
you.
when we do these, say I'm talking about any day conversation in office, and especially at home or with relatives and friends, and you want to you see some people making very interesting conversation. Of course, they have that knack, and they've been probably, they always had it, and they have a sense of humor and wit. And thanks for the tips that you have given, including one of our colleague Donna. But still, I'm just asking, if you are getting a feel that people really don't value your conversation that much in terms of the humor element only, I'm saying, not the content. But sometimes when you start getting the feel that you're not as interesting as somebody else is, then it does, kind of discourages you, or you are trying to bring in all the animation and act and joke and whatever, but you're conscious because you thought that previously also you've not got that kind of response as you expected.
Right.
How to keep oneself motivated and
See,
keep practicing, like that's a very
yeah, first of all,
yes.
I think, what is important is, being comfortable in your own skin. You cannot, it's very, every person has a different personality, and there is certain kind of labeling that happens. Okay, so people who've known you for a while, a long time, they have labeled you as, okay, Nina, when she speaks, she speaks in this particular way. She's more affirmative, she's more assertive when she speaks. Probably some other person has been already labeled as, "Arey, ye to bahut comedy." So even if he speaks two sentences, also people find him like a comic character. Maybe they might not find that with you. Those mindsets are always there. Those perceptions are always attached. Okay, so uh, I'll give you a simple example, and I don't know if maybe Adnan can connect with it. So I and Adnan basically are a part of this group, and we both, I mean, we do run meetings together. And as a part of that group, I have a certain style of presiding the meeting. The person who was before me had a certain style of presiding that meeting. And initially, I used to feel, oh, will I be able to also do it the way he did it? But then I said, why do I need to do it the way he did it? Because I am myself and I have a certain style about me speaking. So why should I be disturbed about or feel bad about my own style? I will do it in my style. Need not want to, kind of be somebody who I am not. So I think that confidence of being what you are, comfortable in the skin, because even if you try hard, it's very difficult to put up an act every time. It's not easy to put up an act every time. You might do it once, you might do it twice. Third time, somebody might see it's a forceful thing that you're bringing. You would, in fact, I would say forget the humor part, but try to bring in something unique about your own style, or modify your own style a bit so that people find that change in it. Instead of adapting a genre or a style which is not yourself at all. So I think being comfortable is very important. If you're not, adaptation becomes very difficult. And you should never you should take feedback in the right spirit, but not underestimate yourself, because that is somebody else's opinion. At the end of the day, everybody will have different choices and different opinions. You should not get disheartened by that. You have your own. Probably you also may have criticized, or you must have also said something to someone that, Array, I don't find this person interesting. The same way applies to you as well. So I think be confident about yourself. You have your own way. You are unique as a person. Probably that person does not have that quality. He or she must be thinking, "Arey yaar, everybody doesn't take me only seriously. Everything I say is a joke for someone." So that person is facing a different set of challenges, while communicating. So that is important.
Eilish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Nia. Can I just add to what you
Thank,
said?
thank you
Yes.
very much.
Yes. I hope that was useful. Yes, Adnan, you wanted to
Yeah,
add
so
something.
as rightly said, before we, as we know, we present our meetings, and before we took up those meetings, we always were looking for like the earlier team, and we that as in we will be able to match them or no. But as you said, we had our own style, and that has given us a very different look towards the whole thing. And in fact, we've done so well that we are been selected as one of the best team presenters. So I think, yeah, stick to your own style. That's very important.
Yes, absolutely.
Correctly said. Yeah. Brajesh want to say something. Yeah,
Yes,
Brajesh.
Brajesh.
Uh, uh, Nice to hear you people, but I am a late comer. Sorry for that. And definitely communication is an important aspect. And I am convinced with Neha, one should be comfortable while speaking. And to adopt somebody's other style is not so much important. To be with yourself, and one can improve vocabulary, one can improve understanding, and one can practice for the uh, way of talking, but that should be of one's style. It should not be just adopting some other style. It should naturally come from inside. That is more effective, and if your understanding is along with that, that is more productive also, and it goes deep into the psyche of other person. Definitely, I am with Neha, and I have not listened to other persons. Sorry for that. Nice hearing. Whatsoever I have heard, it's nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Brajesh. Yes. So any other comments, feedback?
So I have requested to know the groups in which you are either coaching or like you said, you're presenting. So can you share
Yes.
the details? Then we can,
Yes,
in
yes,
case
I
we-
will. Maybe what I can do is, I will share my contact details and maybe send you the details on your WhatsApp or direct
yeah,
email.
if a link or something, you have a website
Yes,
link
yes.
or
Yes, sure. I'll
you
do
run
that.
1 week courses, you said, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Yes.
can connect with you. Yes,
I'm
thank you.
sending you my number here. Probably you can
Neha, you
just.
can also drop your website maybe.
Yes, I'm doing
Toddler
that.
today.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any question for the communication, any part of the communication? No? Neha, you want to say anything for
No,
the
I
end?
just want to, just leave this, on a positive note that I think all of us are unique and we must explore and express ourselves the way we are. Of course, there are times when we all need to adapt to certain, norms, rules because of professional binding or, professional dealing. But apart from that, I think it's important to be comfortable. It's important to understand your subject well, and it's important to connect with people with empathy and emotion. I think when you bring in these two aspects, everything else is, it's more about it's subjective, and there will always be 2 people criticizing and 10 people liking, and we have to focus on the people who are liking it and not the people who are criticizing. But yes, criticism also in a way is a stepping stone to progress, is a stepping stone to come out successful the next time. So take feedback which is relevant, but when it comes to absolute specific targeted biased feedback, obviously just leave that aside. So yes, with that, I wish you all the best, and hope to connect with some of you in future as well.